Mr. Speaker, thank you. Giving a farewell speech in Parliament feels a little like delivering a eulogy at one's own funeral. So if I leave you with anything, let it be my personal gratitude for the opportunity to serve, to make a difference, and the unending importance of doing politics differently. Politics is like pushing a boulder up a hill. All of us feel that at times, I think. It's rewarding and frustrating. It's meaningful progress in one moment and unfinished work at the same time. Three things I think matter as you're pushing that boulder uphill. Sometimes it rolls back down on you, obviously, and sometimes you get it to the top, or you think you've got it to the top. You need ambition, and I don't mean ambition in personal title. I mean ambition in ideas. You need a team. I mean, no one accomplishes anything alone, and I wouldn't have accomplished anything that I have over the years without my team. There's a quote I'm reminded of. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world, and the unreasonable man adapts the world to himself, and therefore all progress depends on the unreasonable man. And I think in politics, one needs almost unreasonable persistence at times. Now, it does sometimes pay off. I've been lucky to be a part of efforts to deliver progress at times. We've seen stronger climate action and accountability for my kids and hopefully for our economy. Action to reduce poverty. We've seen through the Canada Child Benefit, obviously hundreds of kids lifted out of poverty. The Guaranteed Income Supplement is incredibly important for seniors. We've seen the Canada Workers Benefit, formerly the Working Income Tax Benefit, increase in a significant way. Tens of thousands of workers out of poverty, and I'm lucky to have been part of that advocacy. A new disability benefit that needs to be improved and strengthened, of course, but again, part of, when I look back at the work over 10 years, part of the work we've been able to do together. If we had the courage to reform old age security, we could actually end seniors' poverty without spending a single dollar. I hope future parliaments get that done. Action to defend competition and protect consumers. It's been, of many things that I've been proud of, one is that CEOs of oligopolies don't like to come to committee when I'm there, whether it's Rogers, whether it's Bell, Stellantis, Facebook, Apple, Google, grocery oligopoly CEOs. And this is just a story here, Mr. Speaker, because incredibly important to work together where we can across party lines at committee. And I think it was my birthday even. I'm turning 42 next week, but it was my birthday a number of years ago. And I was so incredibly furious because grocery store CEOs had all been communicating with one another to cut pandemic hero pay at the same time for low-income workers. And I tapped out a motion on my phone. We brought the industry committee together and the grocery store CEOs to that committee, and we worked across party lines to deliver recommendations that the government enacted on to make sure we criminalize wage fixing, and what took place cannot take place again. We've built more housing. I've been part of those efforts and part of advocating, and I think we've gotten to a place where across party lines we all understand the need to end restrictive zoning and to get out of the way so the private market can deliver. I think more work still to be done to deliver non-market housing and to really truly treat housing as a home first. There's been action to protect animals, ending the captivity of whales and dolphins, to ban shark finning, and testing on animals, especially cosmetic testing, to strengthen the criminal code against animal abuse. If you told me before I was elected that I would be at a press conference beside Jane Goodall and Murray Sinclair advocating for treating animals humanely, I would not have believed you, Mr. Speaker. Treating addiction as a health issue and Canadians as responsible adults. In one case, we have legalized cannabis, and no, the sky didn't fall, and now I am no longer a criminal. But overwhelmingly, we still need to follow through on following the evidence to save lives and truly treating substance use as the health issue that it is, the same way we treat eating disorders or gambling addictions or alcohol addictions. Being there for my community, and we've all, those of us who have served since and through the pandemic, have had the frustrations and the exhaustion, but the good fortune to be there for our communities, delivering for thousands of people, making sure that they were able to access benefits and supports in the most critical, timely moment of their lives. Also being there for my community, probably the most difficult time over 10 years was to be there with the Danforth families and the Fallon family in the wake of the Danforth shooting, and then to be part of efforts supporting those same families and advocating for sensible gun control. Can point to standing up for constituents. Again, I consider myself a pretty good advocate, but really an expert in nothing. And so when constituents come to me with ideas and they are expert in something or have lived experience, I can point to a range of examples, but I would hold up childhood cancer survivor Helena Kirk, where working hand in hand with her and other advocates, we were able to deliver tens of millions of dollars for pediatric cancer research and support. defending human rights and civil liberties. Dying with dignity, of course. Being elected, we were dealing with that issue for the very first time, and it was one of the first moments where I disagreed with the government to say, I don't think this law is constitutional, and we should fix it. The Emergencies Act, calling out the invocation, I think, in an overbroad manner, fixing overbroad anti-terrorism legislation from a past conservative government, and defending international human rights in a hopefully consistent way and with a sense of conscience. Rohingya refugees, Uyghurs, Hong Kong democracy activists, Palestinians, and more. And to make politics about ideas. In the pandemic, we transitioned from hosting regular town halls to hosting a podcast, and I've been lucky to have many colleagues in this place join me for conversations across the aisle to really make politics about ideas. A promise, when I think back, was a promise that I made when I was running in a nomination back in 2013 and 2014. Now, I leave with, yes, a sense of accomplishment in some ways, but also a sense of unfinished business, and I do hope future parliaments will take wealth inequality more seriously and generational fairness more seriously. We'll take action to ensure that in a wealthy country like ours, we don't see people live in poverty, and we see all people live with a core sense of dignity. That we see transformational action to deliver competition. We are a country of oligopolies, and we shouldn't be, Mr. Speaker. That we do see a wartime effort to build housing, transit, and clean energy infrastructure, and that we take international peace, assistance, and cooperation more seriously. We could use more Pearson in this moment. Now, this is a job, and I think we all know this is a job that comes really with little job description. It is what you put into it, it is what you make it. And I've had some roles, not an unending number of roles, but I've had some roles over the years. The Anti-Poverty Caucus co-chair role alongside Senator Pate, where we've advocated for basic income supports and strengthening a social safety net. Animal Welfare Caucus, which I helped to found with other Liberal colleagues. 416 Caucus Chair to help deliver transit housing for our city. Chair of the Interparliamentary Union and the team here on the Canadian side. And yes, Minister of Housing, where I was lucky to deliver for colleagues on all sides of the aisle, delivering housing and building housing faster. Although I will say, one of the most busy times, certainly, of my life, my wife can attest to that, 4 months, but though I will say I did serve under 2 prime ministers. Now, the role I have lived the most, the one I've worked hardest to make a reality, is simply to be a principled voice in Parliament, one that takes ideas seriously. One that takes ideas seriously, is willing to work across the aisle, acts with integrity, and more than anything, is honest, a value that I think is the most important value in this place. I wrote this a while back. I believe this to be true, but I think we can all agree with this, that no political party represents our views perfectly. Mm-hmm. We find the party that best represents our views and values, and we engage, debate, and organize to bring our party and country closer to those goals. We push, in my case, I've seen my role as to push the government to be the best version of itself. Yes, disagreeing at times, at one's best making that disagreement about ideas, and more often than not, with the benefit of time and persistence, seeing change. Just a comment on the importance of independence. I was just telling my wife this, but in the leadership race in 2023 for the Ontario Liberal leadership, I was in Norfolk County at an event, and a woman rolled up in front of the cafe that I was about to go into for the event, and she had all the F. Trudeau stickers you can imagine, and she had, her pickup truck was decked out, and I went in, and at the event I saw she had a binder, and it had articles about me about that thick, and I went, I'm not really sure how this ends. And I gave my speech, including, the ideas that I cared about, but also the approach to politics that I cared about. And afterwards, as I was working table to table to table, I came to her table. She quickly shut the binder. But she said, you know what, I really appreciate what you said about independence. We need more of that in politics. And it does strike me that, when you take a step back, not only do we agree on more than we disagree, but I think overwhelmingly across the aisle, we do care about the same approach to politics when we step outside of this place. Now, when I was first running in the nomination, and a 29-year-old who had no idea what I was doing, and a friend of mine from law school, she gave me a book, Tragedy in the Commons. And it is a series of exit interviews. I don't know if any of you have read it, but it's a series of exit interviews from former parliamentarians. And they all basically say the same thing. It's a series of laments. They say, you know, I got to Ottawa, I wanted to make the biggest difference I could on behalf of my community, and I got there, and I read the canned talking points I was given to read. I delivered the pre-written speeches that were written by staffers that I was given to deliver, and I voted how I was told to vote. And I didn't make the difference that I set out to make. When I got elected, I was determined to not give an exit interview like that. And in the back of my mind, I always kept this quote from Kurt Vonnegut, which is, "We are what we pretend to be, so we should be careful about what we pretend to be." I actually happen to think it's doubly true in politics. And when I go back to the very beginning, you know, this is my last speech. When I go back to the first speech, and to judge the end, one might want to go back to the start. And I said at the time that I would stress the importance of independence in the House, the importance of thoughtfulness, and the importance of reasonable disagreement. And if I leave you with anything, it's this message, which is we should all act how we want this place to be. We need more ideas, more independent thinking, more honesty. Honesty is central to trust, and trust is at the heart of our representative democracy. So amidst the centralization, the pressure, the whip's couch, act how you want the place to be. And yes, so I can hear, you know, the common answer to this would be, but isn't politics a team sport? Isn't politics a team sport? And first, I would say we are first and foremost trustees in the public interest, even if it means, yes, the occasional visit to the whip's office. You know, we all win elections as a team, but we should remember why we win elections. We win elections to serve ideas. We don't come up with ideas to serve elections. The second thing to say is we're also voices for our home communities, and those home communities, they are our team too. When I go back to my local grocery store and I see a friend from high school, they are my team. When I go back home and I see the volunteer who knocked doors with me in the snow in 2015, they are my team too. And so I just want to say, yes, I've been a very proud member of the Liberal caucus since 2015. I've been prouder to be the representative for Beaches East York. I want to say thank you to Beaches East York, to everyone back home. I want to say thank you to supporters for everything. I want to mostly just say thank you to Amy and my family, mostly for putting up with me, but also for standing beside me.
So before we proceed to questions and comments, what I'm going to suggest is that we'll take all the questions and comments first and then provide the honourable member with an opportunity to respond to them all at once. So questions and comments. The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
In tribute to my colleague, I'll share with folks here a couple of lessons that I've learned in my time. The first, the power and responsibility granted to a member of Parliament from the centre of a political party is never greater than the power and responsibility granted by our constituents. And the first and foremost role of an MP is to hold the government to account. And on that point, I've watched our colleague do that, even while sitting in the governing party's caucus, and that takes a spine. Our colleague has introduced bold private members legislation that started national conversations and that pushed his party in Parliament to take clear positions on critical issues. Parliament only works when each of us remembers who sent us here. In that, this place needs much more envelope pushing and much less quiet complacency. And my hope as our colleague takes his leave of this place, that the spirit he demonstrated over his decade of service here takes root. With a caveat. Here's one other lesson that I've learned here. In order to get anything done for our constituents, we have to build consensus. Oftentimes in Parliament, lesson number 1 and lesson number 2 are in direct conflict with each other. How do you advance a policy on behalf of your constituency if your party doesn't want to embrace it? And how do you convince colleagues that your solution or your leadership is in their best interest? The answer to all of these questions is humility, patience, persistence, and self-discipline. Of all of the human virtues, these qualities are hardest to master, and there is no harder place to learn them than in front of the screens of millions of Canadians, while sitting in the pressure cooker that is the Ottawa bubble as an elected leader. I see my colleague. I know my colleague has always had his heart with the people who elected him, and as he leaves this place, colleague to colleague, I wish him this blessing, continuing the journey to find balance with those lessons, which admittedly is something that I have to remind myself to fixate on every day. But I also want to thank him for taking risks and pushing himself and earning the right to say that he's walked that path, which frankly few people in this place actually do. In his future endeavors, may he be known as a consensus-building maverick. And for that matter, for the sake of our nation, I wish that for all of us.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's sad for me to have to rise today to speak to my colleague from Beaches East York, who I knew and appreciated at the Industry Committee for a number of years. And if his wife is here in the galleries, I'm sure you'll allow some flexibility with the decorum. You have a very nice kitchen that we were able to appreciate on a number of occasions at committee, and beautiful children as well. What I will take away, and as I walked up here to speak today, what I'll remember from Nathaniel is his spirit of independence. And obviously that's important to me, independence. You know, it's one of my motivations for being in politics. But I wanted to ask him a question about that, and he spoke about it in his intervention because, like the member for Calgary-Nose Hill or the former member from the NDP from Windsor West, when we were at the Industry Committee, we knew that we had members who were truly independent working there. And the question that I'd like to ask him about his heritage in this place, you know, if we were to create a Nathaniel Erskine-Smith degree in terms of, like, you know, independence for their party. You know, I'd like to know how independent members are on that scale right now. Thank you, Nate, and see you soon.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor and privilege to be able to say a couple of kind words about my good friend from Beaches East York. I mean, I'll start off, Mr. Speaker, first that it's disappointing. In the last few weeks, this is the third progressive member of Parliament from the government caucus that's leaving this place, especially at a time when we need progressive politics. The member from Beaches East York, I can't think of another member of Parliament in the history of this country that's fought more to end animal cruelty, to stand up for animal rights. It's been just a privilege to watch his work, and we know we have to carry that work forward, all of us, and we'll take that with us, his crusade. The courage that my colleague from Calgary-Nose Hill talked about, I really want to emphasize that. He stood with the NDP well before the confidence supply agreement on pharmacare. I'm disappointed that he doesn't get to see that exercised in his home province. I hope that the government will take that to heart. He stood with my bill, C-212, on a health-based approach to tackle the toxic drug crisis. And he was an outlier in his caucus and stood with us to make sure that we had a plan to respond to the toxic drug crisis. I want to thank him for his support. But I want to highlight one thing as his job as a minister. He took to heart when we asked for support for a pool upgrade in my riding. And he understood the need for seniors to have a safe place to be able to go and exercise, and how it was community medicine. And he constantly texted me, emailed me, phoned me, checked on the project. He worked so diligently. I just was so taken aback by his persistence to try to get something done. And it resulted in the largest single investment in mid-Vancouver Island in federal government investment for a recreation facility. So my community is grateful. So my question to him is, I hope that he'll come and visit my community so we can celebrate the incredible work that he put into our project. And I want to thank him for his work, for his courage, and look forward to seeing what he does next. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Tayakanon, Parkdale High Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to be able to speak to my colleague from Beaches East York. I come to this place as a relatively new MP, but I had the privilege of collaborating with the member for Beaches East York in my former life, leading a think tank at Toronto Metropolitan University. And what I greatly appreciated, we had the chance to engage on a number of the ideas that he mentioned in his speech, in particular competition policy, responsible technology. And what I especially appreciate about our departing colleague is his ability and his commitment to attach thoughtful policy to committed politics. Our colleague is a person of ideas, a person who is deeply committed to the underlying change that can happen with more attention to those issues. We collaborated for a brief time on the industry committee, and in fact, we had an exchange at industry committee yesterday with a representative of one of those mega platforms that I think summoned perhaps the spirit of our departing member from Beaches East York. And in that time, I really had the chance to understand his commitment to deep engagement on the issues and why it matters and how it matters to get the details right, to get deep into the weeds of an issue, to call those who are involved in that issue to account and to responsibility, and to engage more broadly in how these big systems that are so removed on its face from the people, from our constituents, actually touch our constituents in all kinds of ways, whether it's issues related to affordability, whether it's issues related to protection online, whether it's issues related to those precious creatures who don't necessarily have a voice for themselves in this place. I deeply appreciate my colleagues' commitment to bringing those system-level issues and questions and bringing them down to our constituents, not only in his riding, but on behalf of those who care about similar issues across Canada. Our colleague represented an area east of the Don River. I represent an area west of the Don River in Toronto. And in Toronto caucus and in some of the political engagements we had, I learned personally a lot from the way you can have committed politics and attach that to thoughtful policy. And so with that, I wish my colleague best in his new venture and his new adventures. And I know that our place has been stronger and our country has been stronger because of his service.
Hear, hear. And before I give the floor to the honourable member for Beaches East York, I will just say on behalf of this House, we wish the member good health and happiness to him and his family. The honourable member for Beaches East York.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I shouldn't have used the line at the outset because I felt like I was speaking at my own funeral, but now I just heard other people speak at it. Where to start? I mean, my wife's a chef, so that's why it's such a lovely kitchen. But I mostly... I don't mind the label maverick from I'm a shameless politician who likes getting elected, and that doesn't hurt. But I actually have always seen it more as being a reformer. And you can see, look, I'm not alone standing here giving this speech. And when I think about the different ways, different issues that I've raised over the years, when I first raised privacy issues, we worked collaboratively at committee. And it was largely unanimous there in the wake of the Cambridge Analytica scandal, but privacy wasn't on the government's agenda. It then became government legislation on the government's agenda. Digital governance that the member from Parkdale just spoke about, again, early speaking about it, and now it's more firmly part of the government's agenda, recognizing that we live our lives online and we need laws to respect and realize that reality. When you look at the working income tax benefit that became the Canada Workers Benefit, that was a caucus resolution that I put forward that then became government policy. I remember, not to entirely tell tales at school, but when the Prime Minister called me when my second son was born in December 2019, he called me shortly afterwards. I said, well, Prime Minister, thank you so much for the call. I got to be honest, you're not going to love this, but I just won the private member spill lottery again, and I'm going to do something on drug policy. And there was a pause on the phone. I went, okay, but we can collaborate. I could go alone and do drug decrim, but give me an advisor from your office, an advisor from health, an advisor from justice, and we'll find consensus and get something done. We did, and we changed the law. And now we treat substance use more as a health issue than we otherwise did. So I think persistence is right. I think patience is right. I think working collaboratively while also maintaining a sense of principled independence is also an important part of the picture. The only thing I'll say is, it's been great to work with you, and I look forward to swimming in that pool. You let me know when it's ready, and I'll be in Vancouver. And the last thing, everyone's been offering advice. I would just say, to the leader of the NDP, he's new. I would say stick to your principles. To our Prime Minister, I would say stick to your values. And to the Conservative leader, find your sincere and serious side, and the picture might improve. And otherwise, thank you, everyone.
Resuming debate. Reprise débat. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Government House.